I'm Anthony Wright, and I'm your co-host today on the Living Conversation with
Adam Dietz.
and Adam. Before the break, we were talking about this idea of heart mind, Zen mind, and beginner's mind, but you suggested that uh, in order to anchor this in critical thinking, that we go back to the Great Learning. So, how do you incorporate the Great Learning?
Yes, so contemplating on make your thoughts sincere. So that this is thinking, and I know maybe different translations, but to me, it had the word thinking in a translation that I am most familiar with. So you have two type of movements in the Great Learning. One is going out into your family. So Confucian philosophy, this is like righteousness.
Okay.
One is your own mind. You cultivate your humanity in your own mind. So when we talk about cultivate yourself, it's at the nexus of both. Cultivate yourself, you can go out into the family, or you can go inside into rectify your mind.
Oh, right, right.
So rectify your mind, how do you do it? You make your thoughts sincere. How do you make your thoughts sincere? You extend your knowledge.
Yeah.
How do you extend your knowledge? You investigate things. Now, this investigate things, I teach the students, this is actually very similar to science. Science, you examine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very deeply investigate. Or Socrates, examine life. The examine life is worth living. So Confucian laws investigate things. When you investigate things in Confucian philosophy, you find everything is made of heaven. Everything is made of heaven. Just like in science, when you do science at a high level for a very long time, you find out everything comes from the Big Bang. We're all stardust.
It's quantum energy, yeah.
Right?
Quantum physics.
Yeah. So then you can take this insight, everything is made of heaven. Then you can extend your knowledge and understand things more deeply. Extend your knowledge into all things. Understand they are made of heaven. You can see everything that way. When you see and feel that everything is made of heaven, your thinking is very sincere towards everything. You say, "Oh, you have heaven in you. I
Right,
feel very
exactly.
sincere towards you. I want you to flourish. I want you to fulfill yourself to come up and do well." This sincere thinking is a correct mind. You rectify your mind is a correct mind. You're not thinking about things, take a profit, manipulate. You just want all things to flourish. This is a correct mind. When you have this correct mind, then you can cultivate a life, a self to help all things flourish. The first launching pad to understand that is in your family, in your
Right, right.
relationships. This is the most fundamental. Everyone is born from a mother and father. Mother and father take care of a baby. Baby grows up, should listen to mother and father so don't get in big trouble, like run into the street or something.
Yep,
Okay?
yep, yep.
You learn how to interact with humanity in a family, then when you learn how to interact with humanity, you can go into this country. Now you know how to deal with people. This is the work of a human being to deal with people. When you can
But it's in harmony.
in harmony, yeah,
And
propriety and harmony.
yeah, okay.
So when you do this, then you doing your part to make the whole world peaceful. This also is called sage in your mind and
Oh,
king outside. So sage
I see.
within, king without. You are wise in your mind. You practice righteousness going out. King without means you are the ruler of your actions. You are in charge. You can decide when to use humility, when to use sincerity. You decide how to
Mhm.
help harmonize this world, spiritualize this world, bring heaven into this world.
Yeah, yeah. And I reflect on the word righteousness, which is yi, and it's made up of two characters. One of them is the character for oneself, wo,
Mm.
and the other one is I don't know the name of it specifically, but it's about sheep,
Mhm.
and it's a kindness of sheep, but not this idea of uh, following any lead like a sheep. It's just about this kindness. I mean, the Chinese were very, I mean, are an agrarian people.
One way I heard it is that you see a person who is very gentle, like a sheep.
Oh,
So
yeah,
then,
yeah, yeah.
and then I think there may have been something to do with an elderly person. So then you see or that's a character for beautiful, I think, is
Right,
someone who has been very gentle their whole life, and now
right.
you see at an older stage, very gentle, it's beautiful.
One of the things that I think about when you speak about um, that everything is heaven, um, and it's in a slightly different idea than an Abrahamic idea of heaven,
Mm,
but it's
very different.
attending to the patterns of the cosmos that one is a part of, and that there's no difference. And I think, that's one of the things that I talk to my students about is um, what the Buddha discovered. And Buddha, the Sanskrit word for of Buddha, it means to wake up. And what did he wake up to was that there was no separated self.
Mm.
And when you become, as the Buddhist hot dog vendor, make me one with everything, right? So when we become one with the cosmos, then there's peacefulness and sage inside. And I hadn't heard that before, but about sage inside and king outside. Um, and how do people, and particularly these 18 and 19-year-old people, know what to study, what to look at? Where do they begin? Or what do you talk to them about? Because I would imagine that um, our listeners would wonder where do we begin with this?
So we just talked a good deal about Confucianism.
Right.
So last time we also mentioned Ox Mountain about the good nature of human being. So this, I think, is very relatable, accessible for students, for people yin and yang is also very relatable, accessible for people just use to harmonize. Then we enter into a self-cultivation. How do you get your mind this way? So we enter more into Lao Tzu. And before you mentioned Lao Tzu, the function of the Tao, function of the Tao.
Right.
So we talk about the movement of the Tao and the function of the Tao. Function of the Tao we talk about in class is actually you just empty your mind.
Right. Right.
Because the function of the Tao is weakness, weakness. And most students end up, taking something from this. Oh, I have some weaknesses. It's okay to make mistakes. Okay, this is a good way to look at Lao Tzu. But really, this weakness is very high level. When you weaken your own mind, you weaken your own desires, you decrease your own ego. This is like an image that works very well in class. Lao Tzu describes this image. This is like a hand searching in muddy water.
I remember you talking about this.
So when you have a hand searching in muddy water and you're too strong, you're too frantic, you're too active, all you do is increase, 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 increase turbidity.
Yeah, yeah.
When you make an effort to practice weakness, the function of the Tao, to let your mind settle, to let your mind, your will, your ego, your desires to settle, then you can have clarity. Just like the water allows all turbidity to settle, then you see the clear water. So this is the first step for students to see, oh, okay, I've always been taught to strive and go. But actually, if you let your mind settle, you can merge with Tao, something eternal, something constant, something that's in everything. Actually, very similar to you can merge your mind with heaven. Like Confucius, going back.
Yeah, and I think this is a verse in the Tao Te Ching. An old person is hard and tough, and they can't speak for very long, but a tiny baby is pliant and weak, and they can cry all day without getting hoarse.
And they can grab onto a finger really strong too.
Right. But it's not weakness in the way that we think about it in the West.
Right. It's weakness for true strength. Because
Yeah.
actual weakness is you just make some effort, get your mind all excited, and you have ego and desire.
But then it's rigid.
It also is very small. You and your own thinking mind is just so tiny. If you can empty your mind, if you can connect with Dao, okay, or maybe you said Qi, or Qi goes into pattern, right?
Right.
Qi goes into pattern.
Me.
If
Yeah.
you can merge with this, then you are merging with something strong, something that has always existed, something that is in everything, something that can never be exhausted. So if you merge your work with this, then your work can also be far-reaching, constant, eternal.
So another way of attending to this, would you say that for athletes, or actually for anyone, whenever you're doing something that you love and you forget all about yourself, it's like going into the zone. And is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, you mentioned going to the zone. For
Another
another
Taoist
Daoist
philosopher
philosopher
is
is
Chuang Tzu.
Chuang Tzu.
Yes.
How to do this? Forget
Yourself.
yourself.
Yep.
Yep,
Forget
forget
yourself.
And
yourself.
it's spoken about in many different places.
Mm.
But we're coming up on another break here. I'm Anthony Wright, and I'm your co-host on the Living Conversation with,
Adam Dietz.
and my website is theonaut.com, theonaut.com. And how can people contact you? What you have you have a Substack?
Yeah, you can find me on Substack at The Way Between, and you can also reach out to me for anything at dietzadam@gmail.com. DIETZ Adam, one word.
Okay, because please, those of you who are listening to this or watching it, please do send us some questions, because that's part of why we both decided to do this. Because particularly in these times, um, uh, how do we decide to live a harmonious life? You know, and part of this is cultivation.
And how important it is. It's the most you can do for this world is to live a harmonious life.
Right, and that's a very Confucian idea. But we'll take a short break and be right back, so stay tuned.